Hi guys from Yonkers Voice. Today we were able to speak with the Councilwoman Corazon Pineda. She was very helpful and making herself available so we can talk about this. Corazon, Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you, to Yonkers Voice.
Unfortunately, there is lots of people that are not as fortunate as you and I. And they lost their homes, not long ago. What do you have to say about that, Corazon?
Firstly, it's a very unfortunate situation. No one wants to be displaced out of their home, especially during the holidays. So, I'm doing my best to be very empathetic to these families and these individuals because I know how hard this is during this time. What we understand is that this was done out of necessity and as a prevention because their lives were at risk. If any type of emergency situation were to happen, for example, a fire, some tragedies could have occurred. So the buildings department had no option but to condemn that building. We're talking about the building on Montgomery Place.
Yeah.
Because these families, unfortunately, due to negligence from the landlord, were at risk. And that's what's happening today.
But Corazon, in your district, in the last month or so, we had 3 buildings on Main Street.
Yeah.
We had 1 building on School Street. We had this building now on Carmel. People, Latinos and minorities, they are feeling like they've been neglected. Why is this happening mostly in your district and not in other districts?
So I think that part of the reason why it happens in the 2nd Council District and sometimes the 1st is because one, the area is more condensed. So that's where all the buildings are, most of the buildings are. So, and then secondly, I think that's where our most vulnerable population is. And unfortunately, you have landlords who take advantage of these vulnerable people, undocumented folks, people who don't dominate the English language, people who are just not that aware of their rights. And that's why we have to make sure that as a city, we make stronger laws, stricter laws, to make sure that landlords are doing the right thing by people. For example, the new Main Street situation was very unfortunate, but it created a light bulb. And what happened is now that we have in committee legislation that says that if people are displaced due to code violations, then the landlord has to put these people up in a hotel. So one, it'll make sure that if people are displaced, they are comfortable as the process goes on. And 2, I think it'll prevent landlords from not upholding by the code because they know they're going to incur a big financial burden if families are displaced because of it.
Now, do those guys on Mount Carmel know about this? Because the other
it
day...
hasn't been implemented yet. So it will be implemented in the new year. As soon as we come back, I'm going to hold a real estate committee meeting, and I hope to pass it very quickly so that it takes place right away, because we do see this happening more often than not. But
Corazon, that's why you were elected, to articulate and defend those people. Why do we have to wait until these people are evicted? Because to take action.
Well, I introduced it as soon as New Main Street happened. However, there's a process. So if something gets introduced, then it goes into committee to be discussed. When I introduced it, it was the end of the year. And unfortunately, that was it was right before the last council meeting. So I was not able to have a committee meeting and put it on the agenda, which is why it moved on to January. But as soon as I get back in January, it's going to be the first thing on the agenda.
Keep us posted.
Will do.
But what about harsher consequences for the landlords that make, especially Latinos and minorities live in subhuman conditions? The condition that those people were living, no one should be living in those conditions.
I agree.
Okay?
I agree.
But somehow they're doing it. And for Mount Carmel, there were 10 violations. Nothing was done. Why wait for them to be evicted to take action?
It was not that anything was done. So due to a surprise inspection, these violations were found. So it's the difficult part of it is that, for example, the city has many buildings, right? So now they won't know, all the buildings that have violations until these inspections are done, right? Because usually when landlords are aware that an inspection is coming, they tend to have everything up to par, and then they tend to fall off the wagon. So what has been done is, 1, this building has been condemned. fines have been issued to the owner, and these owners have to fix all of these violations. So, there is a process, but I agree that maybe the city needs to look into creating larger fines, harsher punishment, so that people don't live in these situations because it's unfair.
Corazon, maybe this is food for thought, but maybe a landlord that forces his tenants to live in subhuman conditions, maybe one of the penalties is like they did on Manhattan, force the landlord to live in the worst apartment for a month. So perhaps they can learn how it is.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time that I've heard of that, but definitely we have to explore something though to force these landlords to do right by people, because no one should be living in inhumane, deplorable condition. It's just the bottom line. And we as a city have to be stronger and more forceful in how we enforce these laws.
No, Corazon, what about the registry? I heard it from you about a year or so ago.
Yeah.
Remember the meeting on No Downhill?
I remember. Mm-hmm.
Okay. What's going on?
So I'll explain the registry. So what the registry is, it's basically that. It's a registry that will have all the buildings, the owner, and if any, what violations they have and how many when they've received them. The purpose of the registry is so that people who are looking to rent, they have access to the real background to property, so they don't get into something that in the future or shortly after they put in a deposit or security deposit, they're not going to be happy with. I agree. The registry is not what I want it to be. I put in place a law that strictly says what we want the registry to look like, and I believe that the building department has not complied with that legislation. So part of in the January is I'm going to call in business department to talk about this registry and how it's not up to par and not up to what the law was approved for. So I am unhappy with the registry and what it's doing now.
We are all unhappy.
Yeah, because what it's supposed to do is help people that are looking to rent, so they have that information before them. Just like if you were to buy a home, you get to have an inspection on the home before you buy it. So I believe people that rent need that same advantage.
Now, Corazon, just if I need to do some construction in a house that I own, mm-hmm. I must require a permit.
Correct.
That permit must be attached, so inspectors can see that the permit has been issued for the work they're doing. Mm-hmm. What about when a building violates or has multiple violations? What about forcing the landlord to put a sticker on the window saying this building is under investigation and has many violations? Because I might not even know that I can file a complaint with the city hall, mm-hmm. but if I go and see a vacancy on a building, and if I see the sticker, I know that
you don't want to go there. Right?
I don't want to go there.
That's a good idea, actually. That's something that for us to explore. I'm going to make a note of that to definitely because really what government is supposed to be about is openness and information and letting people know, what's in front of them and what's in their community. So I think that might be a good idea.
Yeah, because people need to know. A lot of people, they're desperate looking for a place, mm-hmm. and all they're looking for is the cheapest rent.
Right, but sometimes that cheapest rent ends up being more expensive in the long run. Yeah,
it comes attached. But regardless if it's cheap rent or not, people need to live in a condition that are humane. And
absolutely, 100%. Just because your rent is less than someone else's doesn't mean that it should be inhumane. It just means that maybe you'll have less amenities. Your building might not have a gym, but it should still have heat. It should still have hot water. It should still have carbon monoxide monitors. It should have everything
exactly.
that.
Maybe not a business center.
Exactly.
But at least your apartment has heat, hot water, in conditions that you are able to live in.
Agreed.
Corazon, thank you very much for making yourself available. I appreciate it. I know the guys from Yonkers Voice appreciate you talking to us.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Guys, and stay posted. And remember, the most important thing also is you to get involved. Go to the council meetings, contact your councilwoman, talk about your issues, because she cannot guess what your problems are unless you let her know. So stay tuned.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And prosperous 2019. Later.